Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Malaika Confidence Wali. I'm a student at Jahan School of Campus Foundation Level Best 2. Our today's guest is Maya and our topic is whatever. So, Maya, my first question is what does whatever means?
That's a great starting point. Whatever, such a fascinating word because it's essentially a linguistic chameleon. It changes its meaning entirely depending on how you say it and who you are talking to. At its most basic, literal level, it's a pronoun used to refer to anything or everything without specifying exactly what it is. So if you say, I'll do whatever it takes to win, you're expressing a total commitment, meaning anything at all that is necessary. In that context, it's an open door. It's an expression of flexibility and a willingness to be open to any possibility. But then you have the social side of the word, which is where things get really interesting. In casual conversation, whatever can be an expression of indifference. If someone asks you what you want for dinner and you say whatever, you're essentially saying, I don't have a strong preference and I'm happy with any choice. It's a way of smoothing over a decision making process when you're just feeling easygoing. Then, of course, there's the eye roll version of whatever. This is where the word becomes a bit of a weapon. When used as a dismissive response, it's a way of shutting down a conversation or ending an argument without actually resolving it. It's a way of saying, I don't care about what you're saying, and I'm not going to engage with your point of view anymore. That's a
Okay,
powerful
so
tool for
where
social
did the
signaling.
word whatever originate?
That's a deep dive into the roots. To understand whatever, you have to look at how the English language builds words. It's not like a single word that popped out of nowhere. It's a combination of what and ever. What happens to be an Old English word coming from the Germanic roots used to ask about things. Then you add ever, which in this case acts as an intensifier. It comes from the Old English jfree, which essentially means always or at any time. So when you put them together, the original logic was what at any time or what at any possibility. It was designed to be an inclusive term. The goal was to create a word that could cover every possible option without having to list them all out one by one. It was a way for people to simplify their speech, to encompass the entire universe of possibilities in one single word. Historically, it started as a functional tool for grammar, a way to connect ideas in a sentence and make the language more flexible. For centuries, it was just a useful, neutral way to describe an unspecified thing. It wasn't the shrug or the eye roll we know today. It took a long time before it shifted from being a helpful grammar tool to a social expression of indifference. The transition happened as people started using it as a standalone response, which stripped away the literal meaning and turned it into a tone of voice. Once it became a bit of a shortcut for, I'm done talking about this, the word evolved into the cultural icon of indifference that it is now.
Okay, so my next question
I'm
is
ready for the next.
uh, is whatever always negative?
Not at all. It really depends on the energy you bring to it. Like we touched on before, it can be the eye roll version, but it can also be incredibly positive or even supportive. For example, if a friend is feeling stressed and you tell them, whatever happens, I've got your back, that whatever isn't dismissive, it's a promise. It's saying that no matter the obstacle or the surprise, your support is unconditional. In that case, the word becomes a shield, a way of providing security and stability. And you have the easygoing whatever, which is often about kindness and flexibility. If you're planning a trip with a partner and you say, I'm fine with whatever you want to do, you're not necessarily saying you don't care. You're saying that their happiness is more important to you than the specific activity. It's a way of letting the other person take the lead because you trust them and you'll be happy regardless of the outcome. So while the world might see whatever as the hallmark of a disinterested teenager, can actually be a tool for extreme flexibility and emotional generosity. It's all about the context and the tone of voice.
Okay, So my next
What's
question
next on your
is,
list?
when do people use whatever?
People use whatever in a huge variety of situations, and it usually falls into one of three main categories: decision making, emotional shielding, or social dismissal. First, there's the decision making phase. This is the most common way we use it. Think about those like moments when you're with a group of friends and you're trying to pick a movie or a place to eat. When someone asks for your opinion, you say, whatever. You're essentially acting as a facilitator. You're removing yourself as a hurdle in the decision process to make things move faster. It's a way of saying, I'm low maintenance today, and I'm happy to go with the flow. In those moments, it's used to create harmony and reduce the friction of planning. Then you have the emotional shielding version. This is where people use it to protect themselves or to show total commitment. Like I mentioned earlier, when you say, I'll do whatever it takes, you're using the word to create a boundary of absolute determination. It doesn't leave any room for doubt. It's a way of signaling that you are fully invested in a goal and the stakes are high and you're not going to let anything stop you. It's a powerful way to express loyalty or passion. And finally, there's the social dismissal. This is where the word becomes a bit of a social stop sign. They become sign anchor up stuff one. People use it when they feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or simply bored with a conversation. If two people are arguing and one person realizes the argument is going nowhere, they might just say whatever to end the tension. It's a way of exiting a conversation without having to find the perfect words to apologize or admit they're wrong. It's a tactical retreat from a conflict. So it's a word that can be a bridge that brings people together in a flexibility or a wall that shuts people out in frustration. It's all about what the person is trying to achieve in that specific moment.
Okay, so my next question
I'm
is,
ready for
when do people, can it show indifference?
Absolutely. Indifference is probably the most famous way this word is used. When you use whatever to show indifference, you're essentially telling the other person that the outcome of the situation doesn't impact you enough to care about the details. It's a way of saying the result is irrelevant to me. But there's a really interesting nuance here. There's a difference between healthy indifference and cold indifference. Healthy indifference is when you're just feeling relaxed. If someone asks if you want the blue folder or the red folder and you say whatever, you're showing a lack of preference, but you're still present in the conversation. You're just giving the other person the power to choose because you're genuinely happy with either option. It's a peaceful kind of indifference. Cold indifference, on the other hand, is when you're using the word to signal that you no longer value the other person's input or the conversation itself. This is that classic eye roll energy we talked about. In this case, indifference isn't just about the choice. It's a way of withdrawing your emotional investment from the person you're talking to. It's a very loud way of being quiet. It tells the other person, I'm not even going to put in the effort to disagree with you because I don't think it's worth my time. So, while it technically shows indifference in both cases, one is a gift of flexibility and the other is a way of creating distance. It's all about whether you're using the word to open up a space for someone else or to shut the door in their face.
Okay, so my next question is, can it express expectance?
That's an
Can
interesting angle.
can it
If you
can
mean
it express expectance?
it's not a it's not a common way to use it, but if you look at it from a certain perspective, yes, it can. If you're using it in the sense of whatever happens, happens, you're expressing preparing yourself to accept the outcome, regardless of what it is. It's almost like a surrender to fate. You're not necessarily excited, but you're not necessarily dreading it either. You're just in a state of waiting for the universe to reveal the answer. In that context, whatever becomes a tool for emotional preparation, a way of saying, I've accepted that I'm not in control and I'm ready for whatever comes my way. So, while it's not a direct expression of excitement or anticipation, it's definitely a way of signaling that you're expecting something to happen and you're open to it.
Okay, so my next question is, who has its meaning changed over time? How has this meaning changed over time?
It's had a pretty wild evolution. For a long time, like we talked about with the roots, it was just a functional tool for the language. It was a way to be inclusive, basically a shortcut to avoid listing every single possibility. It was neutral, helpful, and strictly about the meaning of the words. If you said whatever in the 1800s, you weren't being rude. You were just being precise about an unspecified thing. Then, as the language shifted toward more casual, shorthand communication, people started using it as a standalone sentence. That's when the magic
Okay,
or the
so
mischief
is
happened.
whatever formal or informal?
It's definitely on the informal side of the fence. If you use whatever as a standalone response in a professional setting, like during a meeting with your boss or in a job interview, almost always going to be seen as dismissive or even rude. It's the kind of word that signals a lack of effort and a lack of respect for the conversation. In those high stakes environments, people expect a more articulated response, something that shows you're actually engaged. But in a casual setting with your friends or your siblings, it's totally normal. It's a shorthand way of communicating a vibe. Whether you're being easygoing or you're being uh, a bit moody, whatever is
Okay,
the perfect tool for those low pressure moments where you don't need to be formal. Basically, it's a word that lives in the world of casual conversation. Using it formally is a bit
so
like
why
wearing
is it common in
pajama.
conversation?
I think you might have meant, why is it so common since we're talking about the usage of the word? It's common because it's the ultimate linguistic shortcut. Human beings love efficiency, and whatever allows us to summarize an infinite number of possibilities into one word. It saves us the mental effort of deciding, the time of explaining, or even the effort of arguing. It's a Swiss Army knife for the brain. It can be a polite you choose, a firm I don't care, or a quick way to end a conversation that's gone on too long. That's why it's everywhere. It's just too convenient to not use.
Okay, so my next
I'm
question
still with you.
is, why is it common in conversations?
It's incredibly common because it acts as a social lubricant. In a lot of conversations, the hardest part is the friction of making a decision or dealing with conflict. Whatever just removes that friction instantly. It's the quickest way to say, I'm okay with any outcome without having to actually think through all the options. It's common because it allows the conversation to keep moving forward without getting bogged down in the details, whether it's used to be kind, to be flexible, or even to be a little bit dismissive. It's just a very efficient way to manage the social energy of a room.
Okay, so my next question is, why can tone change its meaning?
Wait, you're heading out already? I totally get it. These recording marathons are a lot of work. We made some great progress on whatever, regardless. Catch you next time.
Okay, so my next question is, why do teenagers often use whatever?
Oh, you're still here. You had me worried for a second. Teenagers love whatever because it's the ultimate tool for establishing independence and boundaries. During those years, you're trying to figure out who you are. And often that involves pushing back against the adults in your life. Whatever is the perfect weapon for that because it's a low effort way to say, I hear you, but I don't agree. And I'm not going to waste my energy arguing about it. It's a way of claiming power in a conversation without having to provide a logical argument that an adult could then pick apart. Plus, it captures that specific kind of teenage angst, that feeling that the world is just too much, and the only response that fits is a shrug and a whatever. It's a linguistic shield that lets them protect their inner world while still technically participating in the conversation.
Okay, so can it be used politely?
It definitely can. It really comes down to that balance of tone and intention. When you use it to show that you're genuinely flexible and that you want the other person to be happy, it's actually a very polite gesture. Like if you tell a friend, I'm happy with whatever you pick for the movie, you're effectively saying that their preference is more important than yours. It's a way of being accommodating and reducing the stress for the other person. Of course, the key is to say it with a warm tone. If you say it with a sigh or an eye roll, the politeness disappears instantly. But when it's delivered with a smile, it's a sign of generosity and trust.
Okay, so my next
Right.
question
It's a nice.
is, can it sound dismissive?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by sound this myself. Are you asking if you can practice saying the word with different tones to see how the meaning changes or something else?
My next question is, can whatever ends the argument?
That's a really interesting way to put it. If you're asking if you can use whatever to actually resolve or answer an argument, the honest truth is that it usually does the opposite. It tends to end the conversation, but it doesn't actually solve the problem. It's like putting a band-aid over a crack in a wall. It stops the immediate noise, but the issue is still there underneath. If you want to actually resolve something, you usually have to move away from whatever and toward words that show you're listening and understanding. But as a tactical move to just stop a fight from getting worse in the moment, it's definitely an effective way to shut things down. Do you think using it that way is helpful, or does it just make things more tense?
Okay, so my next question
I'll be here
is,
whenever you're.
why do teenagers
No
often
need
use
to.
whatever?
I think we
Can
already
it
touched on the
express?
teenagers, but maybe you're asking why.
Okay, can it
I
express
think
flexibility?
it absolutely can. That's actually one of its best qualities. When you use it to express flexibility, you're basically telling the other person that you're open-minded and that you're happy to go with the flow. It's a way of saying, I don't have a rigid plan and I'm perfectly fine with any direction we take. In a group setting, this is a huge asset because it removes the pressure from everyone else. Instead of being the person who insists on a specific way of doing things, you become the person who makes the process easier. It's a way of showing that you're a team player who values the experience more than the specific details. So, in that context, whatever isn't about not caring, it's about caring enough about the other person's happiness to let them lead. It's a very adaptive and low stress way to communicate.
Okay, so my next question is, can it seem rude?
I'm listening. Go ahead. What were you thinking?
My next question is, can it seem rude?
Oh, it can definitely be rude. In fact, it's often the textbook definition of a rude response in many cultures. When whatever is used to shut someone down, it's not just a lack of preference, it's a lack of respect. It's a way of saying, your opinion is so unimportant to me that I'm not even going to spend the energy to disagree with you. That's why it's so triggering for parents or teachers. It feels like a total dismissal of their authority and their perspective. It's a way of ending a conversation by cutting the other person off, which leaves
Okay,
them hanging without
so
any
my next question
resolution.
is, what are some alternatives of whatever?
Depending on the vibe you're going for, there are a bunch of ways to say this without the risk of sounding dismissive. If you're trying to be genuinely flexible and polite, you could say, I'm open to anything, or I'll leave it up to you. Those are great because they show you're actually considering the other person's preference rather than just shrugging them off. Then, if you're in a more formal setting, like a job interview or a meeting, you'd want something that sounds more professional. You could use phrases like, I'm flexible with the arrangements, or I'm happy to adapt to whatever works best for the team. Sounds way more engaged and proactive. And then, of course, there's the I really don't care side of things, but if you want to be honest without being rude, you could say, I don't have a strong preference, or doesn't make a difference to me. It's clear, it's direct, but it doesn't have that eye roll energy that whatever often carries. Which one of those feels like it fits your style more?
Okay, so my next question uh, is it more common in speech or writing?
It's way more common in speech because so much of the meaning of whatever is carried by that the tone of voice and the facial expressions, like that eye roll we keep talking about. It really needs a live audience to work. In writing, especially in formal writing, it's almost never used as a standalone response because without the sound of your voice, it's very easy for the other person to misinterpret it as being rude or cold. Of course, in texting or on social media, people use it all the time, but even then, it's usually meant to be very casual. But in a real spoken conversation, it's like a superpower for managing the mood of the room. Do you find yourself using it more when you're talking to people or when you're typing messages?
Yeah. So can it
Makes
ever
sense.
be empowering?
That is such a cool way to look at it. In a weird way, yes, it absolutely can be. When you use whatever to mean I'm not going to let this get to me, it becomes a form of emotional freedom. It's like you're deciding that someone else's negative opinion or a stressful situation doesn't have the power to ruin your day. By saying whatever to the things that don't actually matter, you're essentially protecting your peace and choosing where to spend your energy. It's a way of reclaiming your power by refusing to be bothered. Does that sound like the kind of empowering whatever you were thinking of?
Okay. So my next question is,
I'm ready for the
can
next.
it mean anything at all?
In its most literal sense, yes, exactly. When you use it in a sentence like, I'll take whatever is available, you're essentially casting a wide net. You're saying that any option, no matter how small, weird, or unexpected, is acceptable. It's the ultimate all inclusive word because it removes all restrictions and requirements. It's like saying anything and everything, but in one single word. It's a really efficient way to tell someone that you have zero requirements, which makes it very easy for the other person to make a choice.
Okay. So my next question is, uh, how how has pop culture influenced by the world?
I think you're asking how pop culture has influenced the word whatever, right? Pop
Yeah.
culture has basically turned whatever into a worldwide symbol for a specific kind of attitude. Think about the movies and TV shows from the 90s and early 2000s. The cool, detached characters who didn't want to seem like they cared too much about anything. They'd lean back, shrug, and drop a whatever to show they were above the drama. It turned the word into a sort of badge of irony and indifference. Now, when we see a character in a movie do that, we instantly recognize it as a signal of rebellion or just being over it. It's gone from being a simple word to full on cultural shorthand for a specific kind of mood.
Okay. So my next question is, what did you learn? Uh, Nothing.
That's a really Wait, did you mean what I've learned from this conversation or just in general? Since you
No,
said
no.
nothing right
Thank
after,
you
I'm not
for
sure. Got
enjoying
it, my
us
bad.
on this journey through the history of evaluation of the word whatever. We hope you enjoyed the discovering how simple word can express everything from flexibility and expectance and a first
It was such
and
a pleasure.
indifference language can constantly changing the word like whatever shows how meaning can shift with the culture context and tone. Thank you for listening, learning and exploring with us. We look forward to sharing more financing languages stories with you soon. So everyone, this is our today's video. Hope so you like it. मिलते हैं किसी नेक्स्ट वीडियो में किसी और टॉपिक के साथ। टिल देन पीस आउट, अल्लाह हाफिज़।